Hi guys, and welcome to Katie's Insight, where I give my insight on all kinds of things, including news, business, finance, current events, entertainment, and most importantly right now, stimulus, because we need the help. Now, I'm going to have a video talking about this a little more in detail, but we have a new stimulus timeline, as you guys know. And let me just go ahead and say up front, I knew I've had to take some time off. I'm going to address that with you guys. I hate this. All I want to do is build this channel, and then life keeps happening. Oh, hello, welcome to 2020, right? Like, I'm the only one in this situation, but I know I have a couple days to kind of go over because we've had some big announcements, but I don't want you guys too worried because I'll go into detail as to what I think is going on and what we can do. But before I begin, guys, I want to let you guys know I'm giving away another $100 gift card. So simple. This is all you have to do to be eligible. Like our video, subscribe, hit notifications, comment, share the content, boom. You're entered, you're eligible. That's all you have to do. Make sure and do it for any video you see, because the more videos you do that, the more chances you have to win a card, the more times you're eligible. And leave as many comments as you can. The more comments you leave, the more chances you are at being eligible. Yay! Good luck. You guys are awesome. I've had so many awesome commenters, and I just can't thank you guys enough. So let me just go ahead and address very quickly before I get in the news. Where have I been? Because I don't know if this is going up today or tomorrow. It's just going to depend on how things go. But let me just kind of give you an overview of what's going on. So I live in Oklahoma City, and I know I have some of you, hi y'all, hi, who are Okies, who are from Oklahoma or live in Oklahoma. Now, I'm not from Oklahoma. I'm from Kansas City. In fact, I'm from a city called Independence. We were meth dependents. I think it was like in 1992, we were like the second world capital for meth. So I come from a classy area. So I just kind of want to explain that to some people, because some people go, oh, you're from there. Well, I'm not from there, but I've lived here for about 5-ish years. There was a year that I took off in there where I was traveling and doing some things. But this place, I have a lot of love in my heart for Oklahoma. This place and the people have been very, very good to me. This is a place I've been since I've been really, really sick and discovering that. And I'm just very, very grateful for the love and support that that Oklahomans have shown me. So I just thought I'd go over that quickly. But if you are in Oklahoma or somewhere within this area, you'll know we had like crazy unexpected ice storms, and the power kept going out for like 2 days. It was awful. We went from like 80 degrees to 28. And I'll go ahead and point it out now. No makeup. This is, as I've talked to you guys a little bit before, this is the histamine issue. So on top of that, I started getting very, very sick with histamine, like, where I have to go to the doctor and get some help. That's why my face is super bright red when the weather does any big dips. For me, it's especially from hot to cold, but from cold to hot, either way, it can be very, very difficult. So it's been really frustrating between the power and then my personal stuff as a result. But yeah, I think the power is still out for a lot of people. It was like 500,000 people the power was out for, and it was crazy. So, and it could have been a lot worse. So thank you to the, Oklahoma City and to the state of Oklahoma for helping get all the power back on for everybody. But that's where I've been. Y'all, I just want to grow and build this channel. You guys have watched me. I know how to build a channel, and taking days off, it hurts it. And I just keep having things where I can't help it, and it's so frustrating, but I'm having to remind myself, I'm like, you know what? It's a different time. It's 2020, and luckily I feel good in knowing I'm not the only person that's going through. I can't get anywhere. You guys are all in the same place, and you guys have at least blessed me with the ability to do these videos when I am able to. So you guys know I love to do content every day. I love to pump it out, but if I don't, it's just something out of my control. And if you guys do want to keep up, if something happens, go to Facebook, Katie's Insight, like the page. The group is Katie's Corner. I updated everybody in the group because you guys are so sweet. I have an audience who gets worried if they don't hear from me for a day or two. So I made sure to let them know, because I knew that they would let people in the comments know. So you can keep up with me there and then ask stimulus questions. So, okay, let's go ahead and dive right in. This is going to be a little bit of a video, and I'm going to be, as I typically am, a little bit irritated because Nancy Fancy Pants, who's running around showing her freezer full of ice cream while we starve. She wrote a letter this morning. Girl wrote another letter. This is the second letter this week. This one was, one was a letter to colleagues, and then this one was to Mnuchin, that I keep wanting to say it, but I don't know if YouTube's gonna get mad at me. Feminine hygiene product. And that's no diss to him. It's just his name rhymes with that, and I like the name for feminine hygiene products. It just makes me giggle. So we have Pelosi and we have Mnuchin, and right now it's at a standstill, and both Trump and Nancy at this point have confirmed we're not getting stimulus till after the election. As you guys know, last week, there are all these self-imposed deadlines that kept being put on the situation when it came to stimulus coming. And unfortunately, nothing happened. Nothing happened. And what's also frustrating, guys, is that I feel like we're catching Nancy lying again. And that's what's bothering me the most about this. Like, I mean, aside from the fact that we should be getting help and we don't have help, and that's insanely infuriating. And at this point, I just feel like I'm just to the point where it's dangerous. You guys have heard me say for a while, it's like, this is awful, this is ridiculous. And then I was like, for a while, I'm like, this is embarrassing. And now I'm like, this is dangerous, because what's happening is Europe is starting to go back into lockdowns again. They're starting to have talks about that happening here again, because apparently the third wave of the virus is here. Europe is already talking about going into their pocketbooks and being able to help the people more. We're one of the few, what they call civilized, take that word for what it is, countries that hasn't been helping their people. And I'm just so mad, because what we heard last week from Nancy, which you can't trust anything she says, is we are so close. We're basically there. We have to sign the agreements and get it written out, but we're there. And now she's saying we're so far apart. Like, and this is exactly why, and I've been saying this for a while, I think Trump will take the election. I'm not anti-Trump. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not saying that because I think Trump's the best candidate and should. I'm also not saying he isn't. What I'm saying, though, is that so many people see, first of all, we see what's going on with all the left-run cities. It's just becoming poverty and homelessness and drugs, and it's becoming horrific to where these people are now fleeing their cities. Like a lot of Californians, you guys have heard, and I've been talking about this, they've been fleeing their cities, and they're going to especially Colorado, they're going to Denver, they're going all over Texas, and they're going to take their awful policies with them and turn that state blue. Because either we have a lot of evil people that support the evil going on with the left, or you have people who just, they're following what they think they're supposed to do because the box in their living room that they watch, or their, wherever they get their news from, is telling them this is what you have to do to be a decent person without a whole lot of thought. But then again, we also have the Republicans, and the Republicans aren't that much better with some things either. With certain things, I agree with them. But for instance, Mitch McConnell and company is very adamant about not wanting to help starving children. That's evil. My whole thing is, at least we don't have to question their evil. We know where we stand, where the Democrats give us the runaround. And to me, that's more dangerous, because you have to spend so much energy trying to figure them out. And again, these Democrat-run cities that are just going to, HELL in a handbasket. And it's concerning me. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that as somebody who's middle of the road, who doesn't like any of these people, right? I just find the Republicans less exhausting. It's only less exhausting because you know where you stand. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm just so tired. And I think a lot of people are really tired of the manipulative left. And it's just so interesting, because wasn't it 10 years ago that like the Republicans were the ones who were like horrific and kind of evil people? And I feel like there's been a shift in that, and that does happen on the party sides, right? So for instance, back in the day, as much as the Democrats love to tout their mean against minorities, please infer the word, I don't want to make YouTube upset. Back in the day, it was the Democrats who were keeping slaves. So it's very interesting. So I understand that the parties can kind of switch in certain terms and depending on things, but very, very frustrating nonetheless. So I want to go ahead and I want to bring up what's going on with Nance. Y'all, this makes me so mad. There's a couple things too. Also, make sure and watch later today. So I'm going to start doing more kind of political opinion pieces. And I have a piece coming out where there is a celebrity that's basically saying Black people have to vote a certain way. And that makes me furious. I don't care what way it is. The fact that there's a white comedian, a white female comedian running around telling minorities how they have to vote or they're awful. Like, to me, that's the height. And this is some woman that like screams how left she is, and how progressive, and she's against anti-R-word stuff with minorities. And I'm like, how dare you as a white woman ever tell anybody, any minority, any Black person how they are supposed to vote? I don't care which way it is. That to me is the height of the R word. That's the hypocrisy I think so many people are fed up with. And that's why I think Trump will end up taking the election. Not saying I want it. I'm just saying, if you are somebody that if you lean left and you're upset when he gets elected, you don't know why what happened last time, I'm just giving you some insight that you're not going to hear anywhere else or very few places. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Washington Post says Pelosi reveals that she and Mnuchin were miles apart in the stimulus talks. Because, she has to lie, apparently. Speaker cites litany of differences in letter to Treasury Secretary days ahead of the election. Here we go. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi revealed in a letter on Thursday that she and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin had not reached a consensus on multiple issues in their stimulus negotiations, showing the White House and Democrats had remained far apart despite Pelosi's repeated expression of optimism about getting a deal done. How many lies? How many lies are we going to catch her in? How many? I'm not going to do any stopgap bills. I'm not going to do any piecemealing. Pelosi, not going to piecemeal to help the American people. Unemployment, evictions, foreclosures, student loan debt. Turns around, does a stopgap, which means she wanted to make sure the government could have funding so she could get paid, and then goes ahead and she piecemeals for the post office. Shuts down businesses and livelihoods of everybody in her city, and then in secret goes to get a blowout, and then when called out on it, she says, I just regret that I trusted those people. You regret that you got caught, not that you did something wrong? And then her claim was, I didn't know the policies I created. Oh my God, this woman. We just keep catching her in lies. In a letter to Mnuchin, released just days before the November 3rd election, Pelosi listed a litany of outstanding issues, including state and local aid, school funding, child care money, tax credits for working families, unemployment insurance aid, and liability protections for businesses, sought by the administration but opposed by Democrats. She also said that she was still awaiting a final answer from the administration on agreeing to the Democrats' language on a national virus testing strategy, something Mnuchin had said on October 15th that he was prepared to accept, subject to minor edits. She put the onus on President Trump, of course, it's always Trump's fault, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and yeah, he's a turd, for a deal to emerge in Congress's lame duck session after the election, if at all. You know what? Put it on McConnell. He deserves it. Trump's the only one trying out of any of you. And that comes from somebody who doesn't necessarily like Trump. This is just common sense if you've been following the news. Anyways, so it says, your responses are critical for our negotiation, Pelosi wrote in the letter, which was first reported by Politico Playbook. The president's words that after the election, we will get the best stimulus package you've ever seen, only have meaning if he can get Mitch McConnell to take his hand off the pause button and get Senate Republican chairmen moving toward agreement with their House counterparts. There was no immediate response from the Treasury Department. McConnell himself summed up the state of play in a recent interview with Politico, where he remarked that was a very complicated negotiation. Depending on who you talk to, I'm not sure that they got very close. Evil Mitch McConnell that doesn't want to feed kids at least is being honest with us. That's why I wouldn't say I lean Republican. There are some things I do. There's some things I lean super Democrat at, right? But that's why I would not even prefer, I have less disdain for the Republicans, only because we know where they stand. And he came out with this long before Nancy fessed up and said we didn't have a deal done, which to me signals that I was right. When I said I don't think Nancy has any intention of getting a deal done, I think what's going on is she's trying to get the heat off of her. Remember the video I just did about drunk Nancy Pelosi? Y'all saw that video, right? Drunk Nance. That video with drunk Nancy Pelosi, that interview where she got so much heat because everybody is blaming her for the stimulus not going through because she's at 2.2 trillion. Trump came up to 1.9. She gave him the finger. Imagine fingers. Here, I'll give you this one. It's the one next to it. So that's what's frustrating, is to look at all this and see what's happening with this. She literally just decided, okay, I need to take the heat off me because everybody's seeing my manipulation here. So I'm going to act like we're so close. We're so close. I thought she was going to do this. I'm like, she's going to present this picture to Trump, to the media, to Mnuchin, and then she'll turn around and we're going to actually hear the real story. And the real story is, in my opinion, she doesn't want to do anything that will make Trump look good before the election. She doesn't want to do anything that would make it look like Trump's got a big W on his side, a big win for the election. And it just, y'all, it's just, these people make me irate. I just get so irate about this. This is so infuriating and so frustrating. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that me saying that, I'm like, I think she's just doing a stick and carrot in front of people that I was correct. And here's the thing, guys. Some of this stuff, like I've been telling y'all for a while, I'm like, I don't think, if you were to ask me, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything until after the election because of all these games being played. That's not because that's what I want. I'm just trying to be honest with y'all in what I see because we're suffering and we need help. And it's infuriating to watch her be so manipulative with the public. Yet, orange man bad. Not that Trump doesn't do stupid stuff, but I'm like, who's worse? I'd rather have a guy that's so blunt he's offensive sometimes than you who just lies nonstop and acts like you care and you don't. You don't care at all. It just makes me mad. So at least McConnell was up front with us, right? So it says in multiple recent media interviews and private meetings with House Democrats, Pelosi has expressed optimism about getting a deal before the election, even while justifying her refusal to make a deal by insisting there was really no deal to take. Then why did you lie? Then why did you lie? In an exchange on MSNBC earlier this week, host Chris Hayes pressed Pelosi on the question, telling her, "You have negotiated so many deals in your life. I have to say, I feel like I've been insane. I'm watching this. There's no deal happening. I'm like the donkey with the carrot in front of me. It's not happening, right? Exactly what I said. Putting the carrot in front of you." And remember, the media, especially MSNBC, who's left, these people they're typically not going to call this stuff out, and seeing them call it out, I'm like, whoa, it's nice to see. Pelosi replied, "Well, that's when people said accept the deal." And I was like, what deal? They haven't agreed to any of this. Then why did you lie to us? Why? I just get so mad. The letter did not reveal any new outstanding issue that had not already been publicly known, but it summed it all up, casting everything in a newly negative light with the election imminent. Stocks have been falling as the virus cases rise, and the president's campaign around the country accusing Democrats of focusing obsessively on virus in their quest to deny him a second term. The American people are suffering, and they want us to come to an agreement to save the livelihoods, lives, and the life of our American democracy as soon as possible, Pelosi wrote. In light of these challenges, I respectfully await your attention to these urgent matters. Congress has not passed any new economic relief on healthcare help for the virus since April. Negotiations have sputtered off and on between Pelosi and Mnuchin, with Trump an erratic force at times calling off talks altogether, only to urge an even bigger stimulus number than the $2.2 trillion bill approved by the House at the beginning of the month. Again, those were negotiation tactics. Senate Republicans have shown little interest in approving a big deal. And McConnell advised the White House not to make one before the election, meaning the Pelosi-Mnuchin talks were almost destined to fail to produce a legislative outcome, because in my opinion, that's exactly what she wanted. Anything to stall to not give Trump the W. Y'all, this makes me so flipping furious. All right, y'all, let's get in the meat and bones of this. We're going to go over both letters. So one was from October 27th. Our girl Pelosi has been busy lying to us and dismantling her lies. Oh God, y'all, I get so angry. It says, this is from October 27th. Dear Democratic colleague, for a long time now, congressional Democrats have laid out a strategic plan to crush the virus. The White House and Mitch McConnell have resisted. And on Sunday, Mark Meadows told us why, saying, "We're not going to control the pandemic. From hoax to hundreds of thousands dead, the White House has failed miserably, not by accident, but by decision. Now we know why they resisted. Science at the expense of their lives, livelihoods, and the life of our democracy. Again, it was a decision to do so." Okay, I want to break some of this down. She's talking about, she says, the White House and Mitch McConnell have resisted, and on Sunday, Mark Meadows told us why, saying we're not going to. But if you actually listen to what Mark Meadows is saying, what he's saying is correct. We can't just control the pandemic. That's not, But that's anybody. Now, and he even said we can do things to try to help it and put safeguards in place and try to prevent it. But no, even science would agree. There's only so much we can do with the technology that we have available to us, or, as you've heard me say, the technology we are allowed to have, because from my opinion, I believe we have all types of medical technology that's not available to us because keeping us sick and medicated keeps us controlled and keeps money in their pocketbooks. Welcome to America. So then, from hoax to hundreds of thousands dead, it makes me mad because it's like, girl, people are dead in your city from being homeless. People are dead in your city from being homeless and not having food. How many hundreds of thousands have died in your city as a result of your policies? Stuff that's easily fixable that you don't care about. And okay, from hoax to hundreds of thousands dead, the White House has failed miserably, not by accident, but by decision. I'm sorry, if it had been left up to you, you told everybody to go mingle in Chinatown. And told him, you guys screamed, Donald Trump is the R word for closing the borders when that saved all kinds of people's lives. Makes me furious. Now we know why they resisted science at the expense of our lives. The science that you won't ever release. You keep saying we have science and academics to back us up, and you won't release it. I've never seen your science. I've just heard you tout it. Just because you say the word science doesn't make anything you say more legitimate. She says again, it was a decision for them to do so. By the way, if you really think that you can control the pandemic better than Trump, but yet you only want to offer us a one-time stimulus check in your deals, screw you. That's what I have to say. You want to keep us locked down, but then not give us any money and starve us out, just like it's compassionate in your state to allow people to be homeless and die on the street instead of house them? She disgusts me. Y'all, she disgusts me. Today, the blowback from Meadows' confession made it imperative for the president to declare, after the election, we will get the best stimulus deal package you have ever seen. And yes, Trump exaggerates to lying, and we can't necessarily know that that's going to be the case because some of that Trump doesn't have control over. But for her to say that there was blowback from what he said, it's just the truth. It's the science you say you believe in. You can't fully control a pandemic or a virus. You can do things to put in place to try to make things safer, but that's limited. The president's words only have meaning if he can get Mitch McConnell to take his hand off the pause button. And screw Mitch. I can agree with her about Mitch McConnell. Screw Mitch. This week, we continue to put pen to paper with thanks to our committee chairs for their mastery of the legislation and loyalty to America's working families. Right, because the Democrats, she's basically saying, listen to this. This week, we continue to put pen to paper with thanks to our committee chairs for their mastery of legislation and loyalty to the American working families. Your committee chairs, the same ones that back you up on not taking a deal with the White House to extend everything Americans need to get by for the next 6 months until the end of December. Oh yeah, good job. Pat yourselves on the back. Thank you for your leadership for the people. I'm giving the biggest middle finger you guys can see. I really am. All right, so now I want to move on to today's letter. Letter number dos. This is October 29th. It says, Pelosi sends letter to Secretary Mnuchin on areas still waiting response from the White House. From Washington, I'm just getting mad, y'all. I'm sorry. From Washington, D.C., Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, reiterating the urgent need for the Trump administration's response on multiple outstanding items in the virus relief negotiations. In the letter, the speaker wrote, our nation will soon pass the heartbreaking milestone of 9 million virus cases and 250,000 American deaths, at the same time that 8 million are being pushed into poverty. 17 million children are food insecure, and over 23 million workers are on unemployment. How about your state? People being homeless, Nance? Did you forget all those people? Meanwhile, as the virus surges and the stock market plummets, we are still awaiting the Trump administration's promised response on multiple items of critical importance. Speaker Pelosi continued, your responses are critical for our negotiations to continue. The president's word that after the election, we will get the best stimulus package you've ever seen. only have meaning if he can get Mitch McConnell to take his hand off the pause button and get Senate Republican chairmen to move forward to agree with their House counterparts. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the full letter. This is to the Honorable Steve Mnuchin. By the way, I don't think I can call him Mnuchin anymore. I'm just having fun calling him Mnuchin. Dear Secretary Mnuchin, our nation will soon pass the heartbreaking milestone of 9 million virus cases and 250,000 American deaths, at the same time that 8 million are being pushed into poverty. 17 million children are food insecure and over 23 million workers on unemployment. Meanwhile, the virus surges on, stock markets plummet, just like we heard. More than a week ago, you publicly announced that the White House would accept Democrats' testing, tracing, and treatment language with only a light touch. We've still not received a final answer on the new compromise language regarding whether the administration will agree to the national science-based strategy for testing, tracing, and treatment that is needed to crush the virus, as well as language on vaccines, the provider fund, and ACA coverage for unemployed workers. In addition, we are still awaiting state and local a response on funds for state, local tribes, and territories that will honor our heroes and prevent devastating cuts to services. Safe schools. Answer on funding to safely reopen our schools with separation, ventilation, sanitation, and more funding for teachers, and support staff, and also on ensuring private schools, K through 12 public schools, and higher education receiving a sufficient balance of funding. Childcare. A response on whether the White House will agree to the child care funding families desperately need so we can have children learning, parents earning, and while some schools are closed. Tax credits for working families. An answer on whether the White House will provide funding to strengthen the earned income tax credit and child tax credit. Unemployment insurance. A response on whether the White House will prevent 5 million Americans from exhausting their benefits, in addition to addressing other unemployment needs of Americans' working families. OSHA and liability. A response on whether the White House will agree to keep our workers safe as they risk their lives and jobs to keep us safe and keep the economy running. Your responses are critical for our negotiations to continue. The president's words that after the election, we will get the best stimulus deal you've ever seen only have meaning if we can get Mitch McConnell to take his hand off the pause button and get the Senate Republican chairman moving toward agreement with the White House counterparts. And you know what? Credit where it's due. She's absolutely right. At the end of the day, it does not matter what happens with the White House and all the deals they make if they can't get the Senate to actually get on board. And that's why I say, kick him out. Kick out the Senate. These lazy bags of crap who are just taking money from us. Kick them all out. I know some people don't like Trump, and that's fine, but I'm going to use a Trumpism. Drain that swamp that is the Senate. Makes me so mad, guys. As I send this communication, millions of Americans have been waiting in line for hours to vote. And it is disappointing that the White House does not want to provide funding for our elections during the pandemic. We also hope that you will consider your opposition to ensuring a full and accurate census count. The American people are suffering, and they want us to come to an agreement to save lives, livelihoods, and the life of our American democracy as soon as possible. In light of these challenges, I respectfully await your attention to these matters. And that is the letter. All right, I think I'm too mad to really continue this video. I'm just furious. I'm furious because I knew this was coming. I felt it in my gut. This was where all the signs were pointing, which is why I've been telling you guys this lately. And then, unfortunately, here we are with the situation. So I want to go ahead. I want to get out a video to let you know, I don't care if you swing left or right. Don't listen to these liars. Don't listen to them, especially Nancy Pelosi. She is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't like any of them. I don't like any of these people. I'm just telling you, if you're leaning left and you really think your party is wonderful and a little more superior, look at what they're doing. And please watch my video later. I'm kind of scared to put it out, but I really want to talk about it. This white woman comedian telling black people who they can and can't vote for. The height of the R word, the height of hypocrisy. So I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I would like to leave off my video right now, just showing some of what Nancy Pelosi has said over the last few months to lie to us repeatedly. So, without further ado, Nancy, I want to hear in your own words why you're a piece of crap. Take it away.
Are you ruling out a short-term extension if the talks collapse?
We're not having a short-term extension. So I'm pleased that we have reached a point where we at least, well, they still haven't completely signed off on it, but I think we're just about there.
No, I've been there over the years. I've been there many times. I appreciate the question, and let me just say this. I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that when they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Now, I just had my hair washed. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair? I always have a mask. I always have a mask. For me, for the people I'm encountering, but for my family as well. But I don't wear it when I'm getting my hair washed. And that picture is when I just came out of the bowl of getting my hair washed. I think that that this salon owes me an apology for setting up. But I will say this, in fairness to him and in sympathetic to him, we have to get our country moving again. And I will not let this subject take away from the fact that we have 180,000 plus people who have died from this virus since we passed the bill.
Thank you. Good morning. The President and the administration have hinted at possibly doing some sort of executive action here if there's not a deal in the next few days.
And what is he going to act upon?
Well, that's what I'm asking about. I have been told that they might try to, and this is what they did with the border wall, move some money around, money that's been unallocated from the March coronavirus bill, something from the disaster relief bill. What would you think if they started to try, like they did with the wall, to move sums of money around without the blessing of the Congress?
I don't think they know what they're talking about. The one thing the president can do is to extend the moratorium, and that would be a good thing if there's money to go with it, and that's what we keep telling them. A moratorium, as the leader fully explained, what's the use of a moratorium if you're going to have 8 months of rent to pay at the end of the moratorium, A, and B, what does that mean to the landlord?
No money.
No money. Mr. Schumer grew up in a triplex, did you?
Triple-decker.
Yeah, and you want to tell your story?
So in my neighborhood where I grew up, there were lots of what they call triple-deckers. And the landlord was the family. It was a working family that lived on the top floor. They owned the building. And then there was rent. There was a family on the second floor and the first floor that rented. Well, if they can't pay the rent, if they have a moratorium rent, how is that? This is not a big fancy landlord. This is a working person. He's not getting or she's not getting money to pay the mortgage, the electricity, the property taxes, etc. If you don't push money into the system, it doesn't work. But they tie themselves in a knot to act like they want to try to do something without spending any money. And it's impossible when you have such a huge recession and such a huge pandemic.
And on that vein, we're talking about when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was needed shelter, you sheltered me. When I was homeless, you sheltered me. We're talking about the Gospel of Matthew. We're talking about fundamental values in our country. They don't want to spend the money to feed, adequate amounts of money to feed, to alleviate food insecurity in our country. They don't want to give any money to help with possible evictions, which people are very, very afraid of. And that's instead, what do they want to do? Well, I always point out their commitment to the high end. They're a trickle-down crowd. Pay nearly $2 trillion added to the national debt to give a tax cut to those 83% of the benefits going to the top 1%, heaping mountains of debt onto our children. And instead of making investments that will stimulate the economy, instead of, let me just say it this way, we have to think big. You ask the chairman of the Fed, you ask some of the economists, you ask some of the previous leaders in the Republican Party, in the government of our country. Think big, because this is a big challenge, and it will only get worse if we do not make the necessary investments. Pay now or pay later, much more later.
But to be clear, you don't think that they can move money around without congressional approval?
We're
They
not
did it with
talking-
the
you
border
can't
wall.
move that much money. We're talking about
Better
a
way
major
to do this is
investment.
come to a agreement that meets the needs of the American people. Much better way.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I want to follow up to Leanne's question, first of all. Are you trillions of dollars apart? And then also, understanding that you see a scope problem and you want longer term benefits for more people. However, unemployed Americans have been without their $600 check for a week. They will go out without it again next week. Can you talk to them, and schools are getting ready to reopen? Do you think there is a possibility for any deal in the next few days that could help them plan for the money they could be getting?
Well, we like to do that, and that's what our discussions are about. But there are many needs, so we should choose school children and leave out starving families who can't feed their kids. We should choose renters and not choose businesses that need help, small businesses that need help. There's a broad scope of problems, and the worry we have is they'll want to do a little Band-Aid, as I said. Vote for one thing, skip out of town, and leave the rest behind.
And let me just say, I'm going to just make this point because you seem to be, with all due respect, using their talking points. The fact is, when they showed up last week, it was already too late to save the $600. Understand that. It was already too late to save the $600. And they went to the floor of the Senate and put $200 on the floor, which they don't even have the 51 votes on their own side, much less the 60 votes that they would need. So it would be over by now in a couple of days anyway. The point is that you must be comprehensive. You have to think big, and we cannot let them say, well, if you feed the kids, then you can't pay the rent. We're just not going to do that. But understand, this is the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They're a trickle-down crowd. If it trickles down and there's some benefit, that would be good. If it doesn't, so be it. That's the free market. We're a bubble-up crowd. We're investing in America's working families. And when we go to that table for this conference this afternoon, every time we go to the table, it's as if we're pulling up a chair to America's kitchen tables where people are trying to figure out how they pay the rent, how they can buy food, and you see food costs are rising, and that's even more expensive for America's working families. What are they going to do if the children can't go to school, or if they can, will they be safe? Can we have child care adequately funded so that we get parents were earning, children learning? Thank you all very much.
Just one thing I want to add to that. Don't forget, we wanted them to start working on this months ago, long before the deadlines expired. They waited to the very moment, and they don't have any votes, hardly any, for $600. So that answers your question.
Are you
Are
trillions
you,
of dollars
are you
apart?
ruling out a short-term extension if the talks collapse?
We're not having a short-term extension.